Was this a colossal failure?
It was a failure.
Yes or no? Was it a colossal failure is the question. Yes or no?
I have admitted this is a terrible...
This is a yes or no series of questions. Was this a colossal failure? Yes or no?
Yes.
Colossal failure. That was the former U.S. Secret Service Director Kim Cheadle admitting to Congress that they messed up. Thomas Crooks, he was on the roof of the AGR International Warehouse in Butler, PA for 61 minutes, firing 8 shots at President Trump before a sniper took him out. Cheadle says that they couldn't put a sniper on a sloped roof, yet we see snipers on the sloped roof aiming for the gunman. It's been a year to the day, and we still have many questions. Let's bring in our experts. Former Secret Service agent, author of Cheating Death, Ken Valentino. Also former U.S. Secret Service officer under George W. Bush, Barry Donadio. Great to have you here. I want to ask you about this investigation here because we don't know much. We still know a little bit, but we don't know a lot. Crooks, he was spotted with a rangefinder 40 minutes before he took the first shot. He was never stopped or questioned. Secret Service officials say that they didn't have enough manpower to control access to that large building. Ken, why do you think that then candidate Trump had such little oversight, colossal failures with the security team?
Yeah, very hard question to answer, John. I wish I did have that answer. I think I would be in a different spot than I am this morning if I did have that answer. But you're absolutely right. Colossal failure was the congressional question, and we saw in the then director difficulty answering that question, which should have been, she should have been out in front of that on day one before Trump even got to the hospital to be checked out. We should have been at the podium saying, this is our responsibility, this is our fault, and this is our failure. Anytime you've been given the responsibility, the privilege, and I would call it the honor of protecting someone, and they leave a stage bleeding from a gunshot wound, then you failed. And it just surprised me that she struggled to answer that question. Certainly the protocols were not followed. What we do is really not that difficult, but what they did that day was short of actually doing the job.
Barry, why do you think that they let Trump take the stage? They had a suspicious individual. Nobody went and confronted him. Why would they let a then candidate for president take the stage?
Thanks for having me. And very simply, the Secret Service didn't get the word. That day was just so many miscommunications, so many procedures not followed. I think a misidentification. I think the Secret Service snipers probably thought he was the local SWAT team originally. They were assigned to be up there at the time. For whatever reason, there wasn't any SWAT team members up there at the time, or snipers, local police. So I think originally when the Secret Service snipers saw him, they may have thought he was the police and not really engaged him until they were certain when he started firing shots. But if we look at today, it's just full of tiny errors that all added up to one big fat miscommunication and a big problem what we saw on the stage.
Very good point. And I want to show this because we do know, Ken, that there was a local cop that tried to engage with Crooks. Take a look at this. My colleague Greg Kelly compared the law enforcement response to an active shooter situation in Nashville. Watch how this all plays out. So as you can see on the left there, that is, can we go back to that video real quick? On the left is the Nashville situation. You can see how fast that officer was able to get his gun, get into the school, and execute the shooter. On the right here, this is the law enforcement in Butler, Pennsylvania, struggling to get his gun after he'd already seen the shooter on the roof. Look how long it takes him to load his gun, get it out of the back of the vehicle, and then try and alert other officers that there was a threat. It's almost incredible the amount of time. Now, not to say that law enforcement's not doing their job, but if you look at how you compare these two situations and just the preparedness for a situation, one is responding to it, the other is set up ahead of time for a rally with a then president, a candidate for president. So, Barry, what do you make of that situation and just how prepared they were in Nashville, but in Butler, Pennsylvania, they weren't prepared?
Yeah, I watched the video you just showed 100 times, and initially one of the officers did encounter Crooks when he was climbing up on the roof. And that officer that you're showing there, he just had a gun pointed right at his face. It was Crooks that pointed it at him when he was up on the roof, and we see the officer fall back down, and immediately the officer calls on the radio that he needs help. There's a man with a gun on the roof, and at that time, about 30 local SWAT team members and other officers are racing towards that roof. The video that you have there is the officer running his car to get his long arm, but there were other officers looking to engage Crooks. The problem started where the initial call over the radio, there was about 8 seconds after that call, after they encountered Crooks, had a gun pointed at the officer, that they could have gotten the president off the stage. And it was just too fast. That message never got relayed quick enough to the Secret Service. If it was real-time notification, the detail would have jumped right on top of them, covered them up, and waited for the snipers to take out Crooks before a shot even would have been fired.
Very good point. And law enforcement do their best every single day to put themselves put their lives in the line every day in the line of duty. But it's just looking at the preparedness of a situation like this. But I just want to go back to Ken real quickly. Thomas Crooks, 20 years old. Most 20-year-olds have social media. They have an online presence of some sort. Why do we not know more about Thomas Crooks? And it's been a year.
Yeah, that's a great question. And certainly the FBI has the con on this investigation post-assassination attempt. But I want to go back to what Barry said, because he's absolutely right. Had the detail known that we have a situation brewing inside or outside the perimeter, the president would have been prevented from taking that stage. But, you know, in my experience, going back to doing advances and being on these details, we used a counterpart system. And so every officer is married up with an agent. Those perimeters are robust and they are, properly staffed so that people like Thomas Crooks, tries to come inside the perimeter and to get a vantage point to take a shot, but he's prevented from doing so. And that didn't happen. And, that is not just a failure or lack of resources, as I've heard some people say, but that's just not following the protocol. That is Secret Service 101. That plan wasn't followed that day for some reason. I think that's an important question to ask. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you have to go back to what was the state of Secret Service leadership. And what you've seen is the firing of the director, firing of the deputy director. President Trump appointed Sean Curran to come in. He absolutely obliterated the 8th floor at Secret Service headquarters, wiped out every SESer that was on the 8th floor and had replaced them. And now we're down to these 6 who are going to receive discipline, likely the advanced team that was on the ground responsible for implementing that Secret Service 101 plan that didn't happen. And so now they'll face their discipline, but the leadership is the question, and that's what I talk about in that book, is vision, discipline, and integrity clearly lacking. Yeah,
those 6 Secret Service now facing 10 to 45 days suspension. Ken, Valentino, Barry, Donadio, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on.